Well, what did World Cup 2026 teach us about brand fandom and delight? Turns out quite a bit. Let's find out. Hi, my name is Ken Hughes. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about brand fandom and delight, particularly the difference between surprise and delight. We use surprise and delight a lot when we talk about customer experience and building better connections with customers, but surprise is an external influence and delight is the internal response. And so let's focus on that delight piece. And if you look at the World Cup 2026, look at the camera panning across the stadium or inside in the local pub as people were watching the matches, you can see obviously delight on people's faces, the shared purpose, the shared hope, the shared joy. It's a journey you go on and the fans are there to live that journey with their tribe. And so we want that obviously for our brands and businesses. And the important thing to understand is that fandom isn't a singular experience. So it's not something that you do on your own, it's something you do collectively. It's the commune, it's the belonging, it's the tribe. That's what we want as brands in terms of that connection with our customers. We want them to belong. We want to be a brand partner in their life. And while some brands, of course, use the World Cup and leveraged sponsorship for exposure, I think a lot of brands really should be focusing on the thing that was really obvious, the fandom, because that's what we all want. We want that fandom for our own brands. And so look, I wrote a whole book, Tailor Making, on fandom and the power of tribal belonging. But the bit I want to strip out today, particularly on fandom, is that delight piece. What delight can do for your business. And many brands talk about delight within the boardroom on PowerPoint slides. And if you ask 10 executives to define delight, it means different things to so many people. It's like, oh, well, giving the customer a discount or giving them a small gift, going beyond their expectations. Like what is delight? And the interesting thing about the commoditization of going beyond the customer's expectations is agentic AI is going to do that for everybody. In the next 2 years, what you're going to see is every single company, from a giant corporate, from a small local business, will be able to engage in agentic AI and therefore be able to do the hyper-personalization, be able to make the customers really feel seen, heard, and valued. They have all the data, and so that's going to become expected. And the moment it becomes expected, it no longer delivers delight. And so the game that involves delighting a customer is going to fundamentally change. So the meaning of the word delight comes from the Latin delectare, which is to charm, to attract, to take pleasure in. And that word pleasure, it's got so much resonance. Like you all understand what pleasure is. It's that bite of a juicy burger when you're starving. It's the first cold beer on a hot summer's day. It's the kiss that you eventually get to someone that you've been attracted to. All that. It's a real strong emotional feeling. That's the point about delight. It's an emotion. So for all that corporate obsession we have with customer satisfaction, NPS tracking, sometimes all we're tracking is satisfaction. And the definition of satisfaction is, as a customer, I experience something that I expected to get. Experience matches expectation. That's the definition of satisfaction. And so when we track that, great. I mean, it's good for dashboards, but ultimately what we need to deliver is delight. And delight is an emotion, it's emotional entanglement. And the great thing about the neuroscience of all that is that the emotional experience you have gets coded to memory, and that memory is associated with the brand that has initiated that emotional response. So you're basically coding emotional response into the brand, and that's where you get this lovely emotional entanglement, which is why delight is such an important part of our toolbox for customer lifetime value and customer loyalty. The problem with achieving that kind of level of delight is that the goalposts keep moving, and so next day or same day delivery no longer delights. It's expected. A nice welcoming smile when you have any customer service interaction. It's not beyond customer expectation. It's not into the delight space. So you have to think about what will go beyond the customer's expectation and engage. And if you think again about the neuroscience of delight, the physiology that's going on, like when you get that surprise, it's a feeling. Our emotional intensity goes up about 400%. So the opportunity for that brand attachment is huge. And there's actually kind of a 3-stage process psychologically to the experience of surprise. And it is the freeze, the find, and the shift. And the freeze is the first thing that you do. Something unusual is happening. It's unexpected. And so there's a certain kind of jolt. It can be negative or positive. And so there's sometimes even a cortisol release of stress hormone. What's happening? I'm confused. And then, of course, you move into the find stage. And that's the curiosity awakens and you start to think, oh, hang on, this is a good thing that's happening. I'm getting something that I didn't expect. And so the smile, the corners of your mouth starts to creep up and you think, oh my God. And then you have this shift. And the shift is that emotional moment where you realize, oh, this unexpected thing is a positive thing for me. And you start to feel that dopamine release, which increases motivation. The oxytocin kicks in. And these are all the happiness hormones. And then they all get associated with the brand that's made you feel this way. way. Now, that shift part, of course, is the main part we want to use as a brand. That we think, look, here's something you didn't expect. We're doing it for you. We're making you feel this way. You feel good now. And literally, chemically, you are feeling good. And that association is linked with my brand. And one of the big issues in this, people think, is the scale of it. Well, how do we have to do big things. We have to do huge things to make people feel amazing. That's not true. Like even, when you walk into your local bar, or your local coffee shop, and your barista remembers your name, remembers your order, that's a little moment of delight. So these things don't have to be huge. Obviously the huge ones go viral and it's great, but so often the small things that happen in the customer journey that make us feel kind of special as a customer. Now, the next really interesting thing about delight is its link with identity. Here's where it gets very interesting. Delight creates emotional memory, which then, of course, repeatedly builds identity, and identity is the root of all fandom. So fandom isn't some kind of transactional thing. It's not like buy 9 cups of coffee, get your 10th coffee free. Like that's not even loyalty as a program, that's entrapment. Brands are the props in the theatre of the self, and fandom is the show. And so identity, when you step into that space and you identify, like in the World Cup, as a member of a team or a member of the Swiftie army, you're identifying, you're self-identifying, self-projecting onto your communal experience within the fandom. And so there's a real link between I feel delighted, I am now identifying with this brand, and that makes me, this person. And so it's very anthropologically and psychologically deep in its rooting. It's not just a transactional thing. I bought this and I feel good. No, it's a belonging. And what's interesting about fandom is it makes people act quite irrationally. Like, why do people queue up in cold, wet streets for a new release of a Nike sneaker or an iPhone? Why do they tattoo Harley Davidson logos on their biceps? It's because they want to belong. They want to be part of something bigger than self. And as a brand, if you create those communities, what you're doing is you're building significantly large exit walls around competitive advantage, because you now own something that other brands can't copy. And because it runs deep, like even sports teams can have decades of losses and their fans will still stand by their side. It's a tribe. Like Red Bull isn't an energy drink. Red Bull is a tribe. It's a belonging. It's a community. It's a collective. And so once you get a brand and you build that around you, you kind of leave the brand space and you step into the belonging space, which really is where fandom comes to life. And what many brands get wrong is they feel that delight is a once-off thing. It's a thing you do. It's a tactic. It's a kind of a surprise. It might be a meme that you put out quickly in response to something, or it might be a little gift to a client or a customer. Now, those things are all true, but delight is a philosophy. It has to pervade the business, the organization. It's got to be a way of living, a way of breathing, a way of doing business. The great thing is that technology is stepping in now to be able to do that at scale. So with the AI we have now, we can use the personal data we have, we can strip it all out, and we can build systems that then at scale communicate to customers in a way that makes them delighted, makes them feel seen, heard, and valued. So we've never had these two things before, depth and scale. You could either have depth of connection and lose the scale, or you could have scale and connection and lose the depth. For the first time, we have both with AI. And so AI now can really be our surprise and delight lever, as long as you creatively apply the technology to make me feel something. And what that then does is, of course, release the human talent inside our organizations to do what humans do best, which is empathy, emotion, and then we're back to, I see you as a customer, I talk to you, I make you feel good. And so when the AI is doing all the simple surprise and delight stuff, we can then free the human talent to do the really good stuff. The stuff they say, what happens if we make them do this? What happens if we do this? And that's the creative part. You have to have creative people with high emotional intelligence in your customer service, customer experience teams to be able to action this and be able to think, how do we delight our customers today? I think everybody needs to appoint an excite and delight director in your organization or in your team, it can be a small part of a small team, whose job it is on a regular basis, either daily, weekly, monthly, to have a look at the customer journey, have a look at the key customers and think, what can we do to go beyond their expectations today? They can be small things, they can be big things. There should be a budget in place for that Excite and Delight director to actually activate this. And so at least that way you're getting regular Excite and Delight moments into your customers, who of course will experience them, will feel them, will bond with your brand, and then will tell those stories to their peers, which is then absolute brand advocacy and how you bring your brand to life. Fandom and delight, they're both completely linked. And so when you get delight running and when you get customers smiling and feeling the response, that's how you build fandom. It's how you build your own Swiftie army. It's how you build that fandom that will stand by your side. Even when the bad times come, they will stand by your side, just like the losing teams in the World Cup did. We're all ready for 2030. We'll be there with the jerseys back on again. We'll still be the fans of our teams because we belong. And it's in belonging that's where customer lifetime value lives. Until next time, I'm Ken Hughes.